Now that you have seen a video on just what is a modern classroom, I want to introduce you to my modern classroom or our modern classroom that we're going to have this year. For some of you, you're already used to my teaching videos. And so what I'm going to do this year is I'm going to do new teaching videos similar to what you're used to, just a little bit shorter, maybe in 10 or 15-minute chunks. And along with those videos, you're going to be taking notes. So as you watch the videos on your own, you will be taking those notes and seeing the demonstration of the different problems. But the instruction does not stop. Once you have done your individual time watching the videos and seeing the instruction, you will move from that to hands-on work, meaning you're going to have a worksheet or some practice problems to do what you just saw in the demonstration videos. So now that you've seen it, you're now going to try it yourself. And some of you may choose to do that individually and work on those practice problems. You may choose to work on it with a partner because they may understand it or you may work well together. Or you may choose to come sit with me because you have additional questions after watching the different practice problems. Once you've done those practice problems, you will check your work and you will see how you did and if you need to go back. And there are other resources. If you still feel like I don't quite understand this, then we'll go back and we'll either have some individual instruction time or some additional resources for you to use to do those practice problems. Once you feel confident with those practice problems, you're going to move to what's called an exit ticket. The point of the exit ticket is for you to be able to see if you truly understand those problems. And so once you have done the exit ticket, it will be graded. And when I grade it, this is going to be what will come to be your quiz for those sections. Once you've reached the master level of a particular section, you're going to then move on to the next section. And that's how that rotation is going to start all over again. So let's talk a little bit about these exit tickets. These exit tickets are going to be your quizzes. So what I'm looking for is an 80% understanding on these. If you reach 80%, then at that point, you're probably ready to move on to the next section. Now, if you want to go back and say, no, I can do better than 80%, or maybe you get 100 the first time, obviously you're going to move on. But if you get less than 80%, then I'm going to stop that process and I'm going to have you go back and do some additional things to assist you in understanding the material better before you move on to another section. And as you go through these exit tickets, maybe you have to take one or two for a section. We're going to average those grades, and that's going to be your quiz for those sections that you did the exit ticket on.
At the end of each chapter, we will have a test and the class will take the test together. However, based on how many sections you mastered, will determine which test you take. There will be sections that will be labeled must do. Everyone in the class needs to master through those must do sections prior to the test review date. There will be additional sections that I call should do. Now, these sections are basically the additional sections that are good for the majority of the class to be working towards getting to. In fact, if you are pacing on track and following the pacing that I will give you, you will be pacing for the should do sections to be completed prior to the test review. If you get through all of those sections and you want a challenge, there will be some sections that are called aspire to do. Now, based on which sections you get to or complete, will determine which test you take. There will be 3 levels of test. If you complete only the must do sections by the time we get to the test review, then you will take a test that is worth 90%. If you pace and complete all the should do sections by the time that we get to the test review, then you will take the test that is worth the standard 100% that you are accustomed to. And if you have moved through the aspire to do sections, you can earn extra credit points up to 110%. Now, what I try to explain is that you need to be concerned about you and how you are pacing and what you have mastered to get to the certain levels. I will let you know if you get behind. I will let you know if you needed to go back and work through a section. And before we ever get to the first test, we will talk through where you're pacing and where you're comfortable and which test you will be preparing for on the day that we all take it together.
As you work through each chapter, I'm going to have you periodically check in with me to let me know how things are going. This may be a form that you fill out where you just let me know what section you're working on, as well as letting me know just how you feel about the section and whether or not you're working well, whether you feel stuck, whether you're ready to do a mastery check. I'll also ask you to just let me know how your day's going. That'll often affect how well you're doing and how you're pacing. And there may be just a time when you need to tell me something that's I need to be aware of that might be going on. Another way that you're going to be able to communicate with me is a desktop sign. Each student will have one of these, and you'll be able to put it on one of these options where you can say, "Hey, I am completely stuck and I need your help." Or maybe you're working on something difficult, but you feel like you can push through it and figure it out if you keep working. Or you may be at a point where you completely understand and you're working and you can keep moving on your own. But this is just a quick way for me to glance around the room and see who I might need to go help. So there are additional resources. You're used to my training videos. You're going to have plenty of practice work as always in my classes. But on top of that, if you feel like you get stuck on a section, I'm going to have prepared for you some additional resources from outside websites. Some of them you're familiar with, like Khan Academy. And then there are other resources like Wayground. Some of you know it as quizzes. And then some new ones for me this year, Delta Math is one of them, as well as Ed Puzzle has some great resources that I will have picked out that go along with your section. And so as we go through this process, I'm going to introduce you to each of these resources and you will see the process flow very easily. And I hope that all of you enjoy the new process of learning through a modern classroom.